Welcome, and thanks for visiting the American Atheists website. I'm Ellen Johnson, the president of American Atheists. The Vatican recently issued a statement that Islam has overtaken the number of Roman Catholics in the world. A statement appearing in the Vatican newspaper warned that Muslims now account for 19.2% of the world's population, with Roman Catholics lagging behind at 17.4%. Even with that relatively small statistical lead, though, the total number of Christians accounts for 33%. A spokesperson for the Holy See's Office of Church Statistics said that the reason for this latest demographic earthquake was the fact that Muslims supposedly have more children than Catholics and other Christians. Of course, the Roman Catholic Church has always loved high population growth rates, regardless of the negative impact this has had on our society and the environment. Restrictions on birth control and abortion increase the number of little Catholics. Happily, they are losing their battle to control women's reproduction. But was this Vatican statement intended to spark warnings and stir fears that somehow Muslims are going to take over the world because they are outbreeding everyone else? We've heard this kind of fear-mongering before, of course. Racists in the United States used to say the same thing about blacks. Today, some people warn that Mexicans are about to take over. Not so many years ago, it was the communists and the Chinese. The bottom line is that fear often makes us invent threats and enemies, especially where religion is concerned. Even so, these numbers may not be all that accurate. Even the Vatican spokesperson claimed that the number of those who were allegedly Catholic was based on a jumble of sources and records. For years, Catholic propagandists have inflated church membership figures by pointing to the number of baptisms, but we know that many people leave the ranks of the church, even though they are still counted as congregants. How about the Muslim figures? There are many unchurched, unmosqued people who happen to be born in countries where Islam is the prevalent religion. Let's not forget that just like here in America or Europe or Asia or Africa, there are plenty of people who are not religious, and our ranks are growing too. What if the number of believers in Islam is exceeding the number of Roman Catholics? Ray Hanania, who writes for a Chicago area newspaper, observed, let's not forget for a moment that it's impossible to get an accurate count of the world's population, let alone their religious preferences. Data suggests that Islam is growing at about 2.9% per year, faster than the total world population, which is increasing at about the rate of 2.3% annually. I am not a mathematician, but even I know at that rate it would take several millennia for Muslims to overcome the rest of the world's religions. But it's the subtext of the Vatican message that is disturbing, which is that we should all be worried about this because Islam is a violent religion which threatens the more enlightened values of the West and the rest of the world. That certainly may be said for many Muslim factions, but Christianity was a violent religion long before Islam was even invented by Muhammad and his followers. Think of the Inquisition, think of Galileo, think of Giordano Bruno, the witch hunts, abortion clinic bombings, and even the Ku Klux Klan. It took the Enlightenment ideal of the separation of church and state to begin reining in the cultural and political bullying, not only of the Catholic Church, but most of the other Christian denominations as well. When it comes to opposing freedom, liberation, and intellectual enlightenment, Islam is a Johnny-come-lately to the game, and the Catholic Church shouldn't be pointing fingers. The real issue here is not which religion claims more adherents than all of its theological competitors. It's how the various religions claim a monopoly on everything from truth to the rules we should all follow in living our lives. It's also about how fervent belief in a God drives some people to try to impose their dogma on the rest of humanity, either through violence, despotism, terrorism, or the ballot box. Remember the election in Iraq, all of the hoopla about the purple fingers to show that people voted? Well, the religious majority there established a theocracy by popular vote. That all goes back to what the founders of America warned about, that to preserve freedom and democracy requires an enlightened and educated citizenry. Atheists support the separation of church and state and the ideals of the Enlightenment. We want the Constitution and the Bill of Rights to be strengthened. And history shows that when religious groups take over governments, everyone's freedoms are at stake. It doesn't matter if you're a Muslim or a Catholic, certainly not if you're a free-thinking atheist. The Vatican's latest propaganda campaign, the religious numbers game, should remind all of us that it's not how many people believe in which God, it's how many of us take a stand for our freedom from religion. Thanks for joining me. I'm Ellen Johnson.